angels sing her praise. Ave Maria.
So the angels play a role. They play a role at the end of time, when the destruction of the material world, the universe, is no more. And then this judgment is upon those people. The darnel represents a poisonous plant which is often in a wheat crop. It was common as a way of putting to death your foe by causing this weed to grow, to sprinkle it around when the sower had planted his wheat. Because when the wheat and the darnel, also known as cockle, is harvested, there's very little difference until the very last stage. But if it's not noticed, the seeds will mix with the wheat, and the flour which is formed by the crushing of the seed will be toxic. And the side effects are like drunkenness, disorientation. So the enemy who sows a darnel now has an advantage over those people who have consumed that crop. So that's at the end time. It's very decisive. If we were to consider this as some people, the darnel, which can't change into wheat, we are saying that if there's evil people who can't change, then we are subject to the error and the heresy of predestination, which is prominent in this area simply because, and I say this area, the east coast of America, which has the wealth of the world, the controllers of the finances, these men tend to think that because they are of such wealth that God has blessed them, that they are destined for heaven and that others are destined for hell. That's predestination. But Christ is not talking about that. He's talking about at the end of the world where the continuation of the existence of mankind is no more. It's finished. The destruction, the last day, the general judgment. But let's take a look at it from a point of view that darnel are sinners within the family, and that the Eucharistic people, wheat signifies the Eucharist. So those people of the Eucharist, meaning that they're able to receive because, and they are to take advantage of the Eucharistic Lord because they are free from serious sin. These people are able to influence those who are in the family who are leading evil lives. In other words, the sin is permeated into the family members, and the most prominent one is mentioned in Fatima by Our Lady, even though it was 106 years ago, it's still prominent. More so now is indecency, personal impurity. And we have an avalanche of that entering into the home. The devil enters into the home through the television, through the media, through the internet. Take note, the news is bad news. If you think that you'll have to catch up with what's happening in the world, you're a fool. I say that in hope that you'll change, because you'll be hyped up and you'll be judging and being taken off prayer and thinking of end times and conspiracy theories, and rather realising God is came to save all, you will be starting to complete what the devil wants you to complete and judge those people and want them to go to hell to bring peace to the world. That's the sequence of thinking which happens. Watching the news is not the thing to do because it causes you to sin. That is an occasion of sin, and when you make your penance, which is the act of contrition, to avoid the occasions of sin. It's a sin which is very rarely confessed, according to St. Alphonsus Liguori. And that is also a serious sin, because it means that you're not truly sorry for your sins if you're coming back and repeating the same sins over and over again. You have to look at the cause. And the priest is in danger himself if he's giving you absolution, because, again, St. Alphonsus Liguori has said, and he is the spiritual director of priests as far as confessors are concerned, that absolution will cause the priest to go to hell because he wasn't admonishing the person to bring them out of their sinful state, and the person who will be with him on his back in hell will be the person that he's been absolving, because they're not truly sorry for their sins, because they keep competing and completing it. Now, reeling back, the Darnell, in many cases, are members of the family which we already know. But one thing that can happen, the miraculous can happen, the transubstantiation of a person can happen, a new creation can come from the Darnell so that it becomes we Eucharistic people who are able to validly receive, and they receive without mortal sin. How does that happen? Confession. Confession is the born-again episode. You don't have to go to your Pentecostal churches or your neo-Pentecostal churches to be born again. Each time you go to the confessional and confess your serious sin, you are born again. You are a new creature. There's only one baptism, but the consequences of that confession renews you to be a new creation, to be made for the kingdom of heaven, to enter the kingdom of heaven. You're always created to be with God forever. But when you fall aside and you become the Darnell and you start poisoning other people, that's serious sin. But with confession, you can change so that you become the wheat of the field, so that you can become Eucharistic people. The more the Eucharist is in your life, the more will be the leaven that you are able to bring into your community. If each and every one of you could comprehend the extent of which the Eucharist will bring a change in the universe, at every moment that you spend in front of the Blessed Sacrament, there's a cosmic event. Cosmic means every material molecule throughout the universe is affected favourably. And when you consider also that we're not spending the time with our best friend, our Creator, you've got to be asking yourself, why? Are you wasting time? If you think that you've got to be up with what's going on in the world, you're sucked in. You should be in front of the Blessed Sacrament. It's not the internet which is going to evangelise you, it is the Blessed Sacrament which will evangelise you. You need to come to Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament and believe and be convicted that He is your Lord and Saviour, that He will bring salvation into the world. When more and more people come before Him in the Blessed Sacrament, the change will come. A triumph will come. The triumph of the Immaculate Heart will come. She's calling everyone to the Eucharist. Wherever she's appearing, she's asking for a chapel, for a church to be established. And where are the great multitude, and where are the great conversions happening? Where are the millions and millions at Guadalupe, at Parousia, Lourdes, Fatima? Where are they going? They're going to the Marian shrines, because Our Lady is drawing you there to the Eucharist, to her Eucharistic Son. And God has given her that role to do that. So the Marianisation of the world has to be done. Someone needs to do it. Bertolo Longo realised very early in his conversion, as he returned back to the faith after being a satanic priest, and he himself was suicidal, his priest said, those who promote the Most Holy Rosary will go to heaven. Effectively, that's what he was saying, are predestined for heaven. So you've got to do more than just pray your rosary. Get out there. Start praying. Say a decade in the car, and then when you're walking down the street, say a decade. If someone comes up to you, be assured they're not coming up to you to assault you. They're coming up because they see something different about you. It's your Marianisation. It's that beauty which they know that you have, a serenity, a peace, and they are drawn to that. So you pray a Hail Mary. And people know the Hail Mary, especially when you say it a few times, they pick up on it. Because the culture in this area is Catholic to the roots. So the roots in this area are entwined. The darnel is entwined with the wheat. So rather than separating them and causing both damage, stay with them because they want to be wheat like you. Our Lady brought the wheat to us. Jesus is that bread of life. So beg her, but follow some of these instructions and you'll find a change not only in yourself but the people around you and also in the neighbourhood and also in the world. If you're frightened to go outside, if you're frightened, maybe it's because you're watching too much stuff on the television where that's what they want you to think, to be fearful, so that they can then keep you indoors and be consumers of their rubbish, consuming the filth and the rot that they transmit through the media, so that you'll be corrupted and the devil wants you in hell, and he's got entry, not through the window, not through the door, but through the screens that you're looking at. In the early days of television, it was called the tabernacle of the devil. Now you carry it on you. So get off it. But in order to get off it, start spending time in front of Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament and beg Our Lady for the graces, because she's a mediatrix of graces, to get off it. And when you are, you'll be able to then help other people go through that transition of being, again, Eucharistic people. Now, many family members have fallen to the wayside. They're clustered together because there's security, and also it means that at least it's a cheaper way of living, so they're practical ways. But the parents need to sanctify themselves in that situation, because in earlier years, the children would fly out and they would have their home. Not so much now. By the time they're 29, many are still at home, whereas 50 years ago, they were out, they were married, and they were having their own children, and they could afford the house. Not so today. 2 incomes are necessary even to finance a rental home. So the children will stay at home, and they're in their muck. They've got access to all the internet stuff, which is poisoning them. And the change is not visibly, but you will notice there's an absence of them coming to Mass, but it's the confession that they need. So how do you reach them? For your own sanctification. For those who are Eucharistic, step it up. Daily Mass. Rosary, if they can't say it at home, join one of the cenacles, which are so much available to you. 20 or so a month. They're on the notice board. You come here, there's rosaries twice a day. Find out when they are, and you'll enjoy the benefit of a group rosary. Time and time we say this. It's the group rosary, which has the power of exorcism. And over a period of time with intense prayer, you'll find that the boys at home will like to see the priest, and the confessions will be at home. And then they're reeling back in Many are living in cohabitation because of the economic circumstances which are prevailing. They don't want to sin, but they want to be with one another, and they can't afford to be living separately in different residences. So the sin goes on, but they want to change. And this is where Pope Francis is trying to reach those people. They can live in other rooms at the other end of the house, but nevertheless they still fall. So we need to increase our prayer, to increase our adoration so that these souls, though they don't want to sin, they fall. So we have to keep encouraging them, but we have to ourselves become more holy. And the Fatima message is the easy way to do it. Increase your hours of adoration, increase your mass going. Don't be concerned about what is happening in the home. Start to reach out, get up early, go to Mass, go to an evening Mass, have 2 Masses. You'll break through very quickly so that your sons and daughters who are living in sin, thinking that they're not known to be in sin, will then start to come around and get back to confession. And the joy that comes from a good confession is heavenly, and they want that. That's what Mary Magdalene tasted, that heavenly gift of Jesus. She was looking for love. She was going everywhere for love. The people that she trusted dobbed her in to the law, and they wanted Jesus to interpret the law. But when he spoke back to the accusers, they were the ones who brought her into that condition. They were the users of that woman. When you become more and more Christ-like, you'll expose the underlying devilish role which is causing your sons and daughters to sin. It's a wonderful thing to have sanctity. It's a great gift from God, and he needs you so that he can reach everyone, not just a few. But it's up to you.